Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Getting Over podcast. It feels like it's been a while. I mean, it probably has been a while, but it just feels like it's been a long time since we discussed wrestling. But we're all here, and we're all talking wrestling. We've got the Royal Rumble, one of my personal favourites, coming up. So we got together to discuss what happened from our last premium live event. And to discuss what we think is going to happen in the Royal Rumble. All the news and everything else you could possibly want from a wrestling podcast. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. And obviously the big one there is share the podcast around. If you've got a wrestling fan in your life, send them this podcast. They will absolutely love you for it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast Getting Over.
Recording in progress.
Hello. By the fact that it's me starting, and for the YouTube viewers that can see the backdrop, you will have already realised this is Getting Over on CookieCast, and we are up to episode number 60. You picked a great episode to tune into, as not only do we have a whole host of things to kick-start the road to WrestleMania, but the Royal Rumble Predictions podcast brings around the Getting Over anniversary. We are entering our 6th year of the Getting Over podcast. Already at school, and but the next thing we know, they'll be leaving home, married with a kid. So thank you very much for tuning in. If this is your first time, have a little look at the subscribe button on the platform of choice. Give it a click. If this isn't your first time, thanks for coming back. Very much appreciated. Tell a friend. Anyway, as regulars will know, you don't just have me here to talk absolute nonsense for the next however long about WWE and the wider world of wrestling. I am joined by what is now going to be collectively known as the three faces of the CookieCast network. Star of the football podcast and Nottingham Forest fan extraordinaire, Mr. Matthew Moore. We have another star of the football podcast, and let's be fair, every other podcast ever in the history of CookieCast. I'm assuming that your invite to the F1 podcast straight to the Apex must be in the post somewhere. But Mr. Paul Williams is alongside.
Guten Tag.
And last, but by no means least, the creator of this fan platform, Mr. Andy Cook.
Good evening.
So, welcome along, gents. Another year of Getting Over. Thank you for joining me as always. And I suppose we better get rolling. So, we'll do predictions title, as always, at the beginning. Matt is our reigning and defending champion after picking up the title at Payback. It is a while since we've been on, so yeah, it was that long ago. But since then, he's held a Roman Reigns-esque vice-like grip on the gold. Will that continue following the Survivor Series results? Now, again, appreciate it's been a little while because WWE love to take a little break now in December, seemingly. So it kind of scuppers us there with the old predictions, but it was another close run thing. You may remember there were some very, very, very similar predictions last time. There was a maximum of 5 points up for grabs. There was 1 point in it between first and last. Exactly. Which tells you, on 3 out of 5 points, still more than half, unfortunately for him, was Mr. Paul Williams. So commiserations to you, sir. So the rest of us got 4 out of 5. And the match that scuppered it was the Women's War Games match. We all had Damage Control down to win, and obviously they didn't. But I think, ironically, Paul finishing last, it was probably Paul that had the foresight on the last episode to throw in the pre-made tiebreak of how long the men's war game match would be. I went long, some would say for the first time ever, at 47 minutes and 12. Andy went 33-33 because, all about them angel numbers and all that. And Matt sat in the middle at 37 and 14. Now, the only method I had to verify this, other than sitting and watching it back and timing it myself, was the most reliable form of information in the world, as we all know, is Wikipedia. Right? So the official, unofficial time for the men's wargame match was 34 minutes and 50 seconds. So unfortunately for Matt, that title reign does come to an end on a tiebreak, and Andy has regained the predictions title. So well done to you, sir.
Thank you.
I thought Matt was going to do a little swear then, but no, yeah. So yeah, congratulations to Andy. So obviously we'll get to some Royal Rumble predictions later on. A little bit of a spoiler. There's not a lot of information floating around in terms of a match card at the moment. It is very light considering we are in the week of a premium live event. So we'll have to make our own categories and get some more points as we normally do at this time of the year. However, before we get stuck into that, as I mentioned, due to the lack of the December premium live event, we've had a little break and lots has happened in the world of wrestling. We can't cover everything since the last podcast, so I've kind of gone with things that are what I feel are the more important to the upcoming predictions, as well as some more recent happenings. So back at Survivor Series, we had two returns. The return of Randy Orton and the return of one Mr. CM Punk. So the week before Survivor Series, it was confirmed that Randy Orton was going to join Team Cody. I think we discussed that obviously last time because we'd mentioned that in the predictions. But considering that he'd been out of action for 18 months, not only did he still get a hell of a reaction, even though they kind of ruined it, he also put an absolute shift in during the match, so that was good to see. But when the dust had settled and Team Cody had emerged victorious, Cult of Personality just started blasting out around the arena, confirming the rumours that Punk had returned to WWE. And whilst he didn't really do anything other than sitting down at the top of the ramp, Seth Rollins went absolutely what can only be described as fucking mental. Maybe even that was a precursor to the knee injury by how sort of much he was remonstrating. Who knows? Even did a bit of swears. But yeah, of course, we now kind of know that this is all part of the story. For a week or so, it looked legit, and that kind of added to the buzz. So that was quite a nice little return. But yeah, gents, what's the feeling around Punk being back in WWE?
Is it not just like one giant ticking clock?
Well, what you mean bomb?
I mean, yeah, the fact that, I mean, presumably him coming back just started a timer on how long he's going to be there until he either gets kicked out or leaves or something else happens. You know, his run through AEW wasn't exactly, void of incidents, so especially obviously towards the back end, part of me is a bit like, what are we doing here?
So here come the number one Tony Khan hater has his hand up, so I'm sure he's got some insightful input to come in here.
It's not an agenda or anything like that. Would the argument not be made that he's working with actual sort of professionals now again, so maybe he'll be able to avoid any sort of uncomfortable situations?
I think I would say the flip side of that is obviously he went to AEW with some kind of level of you're going to have influence and control, which seems to be the Tony Khan way. And then when he couldn't do exactly everything that he wanted to do, then he spies Dodie out, along with other wrestlers who've also spat their Dodie out at AEW. But obviously he goes to WWE. He's got zero influence in anything there now. So obviously that takes that kind of potential. Well, it doesn't take the potential of him spitting his dummy, because we know he can do that. I just think there's less reason. There's no at AEW. There was reason for him to do it, and kind of legitimate reason to do it in his head. Whereas at WWE, there is no legitimate reason for him to do it.
One thing I've quite enjoyed is some of the promos that have happened since, particularly the fact that they're poking fun at the alleged backstage incident, which to me kind of says that either two things. One, it was never as serious as they made out in the first place, or two, because of this apparent legal agreement where nobody can say anything about any of it, he knows that he's got away with it scot-free. So, I mean, why not have a bit of fun at that expense? I think if he'd have never have come back, it would have been that age-old thing of like money being left on the table. He hasn't got the benefit of 10 years of youth, as it were, since his last appearance in WWE. Time is probably not on his side if he wants to get sort of top-level matches anyway. Depends what he wants from it. I presumed when he came back it would be very much what's now become known as the Roman Reigns schedule, in the sense of he'll just pick and choose the events that he's worked at. Now, seemingly so far, absolutely has. He's not been on every Raw. It remains to be seen what happens at the Rumble. But if he's actually seriously going to go for a title run, then particularly against Rollins, if that's what happens, Rollins has made that title the title that appears every week. They can't give it to somebody who's not going to be there every week. So therefore, does it mean that Punk's actually going to be almost pull like the John Cena run, as it were, from last year, from like Rumble through Mania, and then possibly Mania through SummerSlam, and then have his little farewell. Whether that's by punching people in backstage or not, I'm not sure. But that would be kind of my take on it. I do expect that he'll be back a little bit more regularly. I'm not expecting him to wrestle every week, but I at least think he'll make some sort of appearance.
I don't want to tread on probably what you've got prepared already, but obviously with the other news that's come out this week, I'm sure there'll be an encouragement for him to be more prominent come.
So you were saying about the fact that he's going to have even less wiggle room at WWE. I don't want to sort of focus too much on what I'm sure is coming up, but I imagine the WWE of the past that had no wiggle room now has even less, with having a even more overarching control as being the bigger company. There'll be a bigger picture aspect to the bigger company, etc., etc. I imagine there are some very clear guidelines for that company and what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Well, we can skip. I do have this in the news, so we can skip forward to that already. What the guys were alluding to is the news that broke very, very recently, in the sense of the Dwayne himself, Mr. Dwayne Johnson, has been appointed to the TKO Group Board of Directors. You'll remember that TKO is the holding group which now owns both UFC and WWE. In addition to the appointment, the Dwayne has been awarded full ownership of the Rock trademark, previously owned by WWE, as well as signing a new merchandising deal. His press release claimed that he's there to, and I quote, proudly represent so many phenomenal athletes and performers, and to help the TKO CEO, Ari Emanuel, build the TKO brand. And as I mentioned, he's definitely not there just because of the merchandising deal and the absolute shit ton of money that he's going to make from doing this. It is doing it for the people. In some regards, I actually don't think it's a terrible appointment, which may surprise you. More because at least it's somebody that's been involved in the business, that has lived through what is probably fondly remembered as the greatest era of, well, modern wrestling anyway. Obviously, it depends if you're a golden era guy or an attitude era guy. I'm not going to get into that, but at least it's somebody who's been through it when it saw a boom period, having come from the gutter, really. I don't think they're quite at that level now. I do quite enjoy the product, but it's not they're at a stage where they're looking to grow the company internationally, and as much as it might pain me personally because of what I think of him, like, my kids have never seen him wrestle, but they still know who he is because he's the guy that's the voice of Moana, and not the voice of Moana, the voice of Maui. Moana, that would have been a very different film. And you know, he's the guy that's on the advert for this, and he's the guy that's on the film for that. So it's a more kind of rounded kind of appointment, but with more of a focus towards the wrestling. So yeah, again, it might shock you, but I'm not. I can see why it happened, put it that way.
Yeah, it's quite. I think like the stuff that they've reported for the quotes for what he said. There was more to his statement. There was more to what he was saying, and I've had an up and down sort of thing with Dwayne Johnson, and I may be on a bit of a downswing at the moment. But there felt like a small element of entitlement when he was saying about his dad and his granddad and how they built that, you know, they built the business, so it felt right. And I was a bit like, steady on there. It's a different company to what it was then, and you know, that sort of stuff. I suppose the way, well, I'll say what I said to you guys. At the moment, Dwayne Johnson feels a little bit too wrestling and a few other things like Taylor Swift feels towards the NFL. Like the moment the camera cuts to her, you're like, okay, can we just focus on the football? We're not here for that sort of thing. And there was an element of when the news broke yesterday, it was like, oh, can we just not for 5 minutes have something rock based? And like I say, there was a point in time when I you know, sing his praises quite happily because, you know, that's how I felt at that time. But he has dropped a lot in my estimation over recent years for a lot of for a variety of different reasons. So like I say, when the news broke yesterday, I was like, oh, can we just not? Does Dwayne Johnson need those extra dollars? Is he struggling for cash? Is he really hard up for money? Has he still only got $7 in the bank?
Despite, like I said, despite my usual concern with this guy, I still don't think it's a bad appointment. But the one thing that kind of is niggling me about it is look at his recent track record. So he went off to do acting. I appreciate that's not recent when he started to do that, but he went off to do acting and he was complete Hollywood megastar until he got a little bit too involved and they dropped him like a ton of bricks, and hasn't really done anything since. Look up the DC stuff if you're not familiar with that. He bought the XFL because he was gonna bring football back as like out of season, but he was gonna. XFL was dead, and he wanted to do everything he could because, you know, he was a failed NFL star and blah 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 blah. And then he brought the XFL back, and I think they just about scraped the first season out of it. And then the only reason they're going to get any more football is because he's lost interest with it seemingly, and they've merged with is it the USFL they've merged with?
I thought they'd gone in with the NFL at one point. I thought they'd basically become like the training squad for the NFL.
I think there might be elements of that in that sort of agreement. But I think it is just a merger of the USFL and the XFL to make. Have they just called it the UFL?
I stopped reading at that point, if I'm honest. I knew it had happened, but what I'm getting at is that it feels like he's got either a very short attention span or just seemingly his tastes change very quickly, and if he's not getting immediate success instantly, he switches his focus to something else.
And like, you know, you could say that is business. You could say that, you know, a shrewd business person knows when to cut their losses. You know, business is very much like gambling. You know, stop when you're when you're ahead, or stop when you're behind, or just don't gamble.
But there's still the common denominator of he's a part of all of it. There's not, it's golden for so long until his attention switches, and then it like you might as well be like, right, not bothered anymore. Do it like, and like it. I don't think he can't do that this time. I think the contract, particularly for the fact it's with the TKO group, I think will be a lot more watertight. I think he got away lightly with that DC thing in the end.
I mean, the slap on the wrists that was more spanking than slap on the wrists was in some ways the beginning of the end. It was certainly the beginning of the end for certain aspects of his acting career. I would say, look at how many films he's done since that haven't gone straight onto Netflix. I don't think he helped anything with the thing he did with Oprah. I think that damaged his reputation quite a bit. And I think it's been, as I said on a previous one of these podcasts, it feels very much a better the devil you know kind of situation. I'm not popping here, and I'm not popping here, and I'm not popping here, but I tell you where I will pop day in, day out, no matter what day of the week it is, no matter what year it is. There is one place that I will pop, massively, and that will always be the wrestling. 2 minutes later, he's walking out into an arena, and it's like, it feels, there was mention of like coming full circle, and it was a bit like, yeah, but when you walked away, like when you left the wrestling, was it not supposed to be to go to like a bigger and better things kind of feel? I'm going to go Hollywood, and I'm going to do that, and that's the next logical step. To say it's come full circle in some respects is a bit like, have you come home with your tail between your legs somewhat? I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, it's a massive deal. He did lean a little heavy on the getting ownership of the Rock name, which I'm sure will have caused problems in the past. If you think about things like, I know he's got that deal with Under Armour to do the Rock branded stuff. How much of a slice was WWE taken out of that deal? Because if it's The Rock, presumably if they own that name, and his name is Dwayne The Rock Johnson, it's always going to be there that WWE have a little bit of a leash to say that that's now been removed. I'm sure that, like we said, I'm sure them dollar bills are going to start rolling in again, because he's probably been down the back of that sofa recently.
The thing with the trademark would never have happened had Vince still been in charge, I don't think. I think that's one of them where that's only come about because of the change in ownership. I can't see that would ever have happened, because put it this way, the Undertaker still doesn't own the Undertaker license, does he? And he was very much a Vince guy through and through. But yeah, I suppose, speaking of huge deals, there was another huge deal announced just off the back of the Rock announcement, in that Raw is moving to Netflix from January 2025.
Wait, what? This is news to me, Stuart. How has this gone under the radar? I haven't seen any mention of this on every single platform across the entire globe.
Yeah, and they've still got another year on the contract with USA Networks. I imagine they're absolutely delighted that they're going to be promoting another platform for 12 months. For viewers outside the US, Netflix will also become the home of NXT, SmackDown, and apparently premium live events. I'd be interested to see how this works, because will Netflix going to adopt like a model where you have to pay for it, like a box office feature, or is it going to be a higher level of subscription where you then get these things included? But One thing that they've been dead sketchy on so far is whether or not these things will be broadcast live. I haven't seen anything anywhere which confirms that you're going to be able to watch Raw as it's happening.
One of the early announcements I saw at the time, obviously we started talking about it yesterday, said live shows.
That's good, because if they always like bang on, don't they, about the longest running weekly episodic live television show in history.
Yeah.
And if that was to come to an end, I mean, from the reports, was it 8 billion reasons why that may have come to an end? But
I can't imagine what those reasons would be.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the one thing is, it's going to probably see the demise of the WWE network as we know it outside the US. Obviously, Peacock's already dancing on that grave in the States, as it were. There's also that element of they've done some of the stuff with ESPN, with the Ric Flair thing and a couple of other things, and that's owned by Disney. So that's kind of, is that still going to be on a different streaming service? There are a lot of complications, but I guess the positive side of it is
the thing is that they've branched out as well. So like, there's a Vince documentary coming out soon that's with The Ringer. So like, that's like Bill Simmons, who's a like sports columnist who's like then set up his own company, sold it to Spotify for like 250 million or something like that, and he's doing a Vince one. He did. I'm sure he did another one. Can't remember what the other one was. He was heavily involved in the Andre the Giant one. So I wonder where that's going as well. If that's going to end up on Netflix or something like that.
I think, like you say, for us outside the US, it's a good deal because Peacock have still got the deal until 2026. So on top of that, there's another year to go in the States. For everything other than Raw. But there's a lot they've got to iron out. But I guess more will become clear nearer the time. We still have a little more news to get to, but I'm aware that the last two pieces of news are particularly huge. So I'm going to take this opportunity just to say we're going to just dip out, get a little drink, refresh ourselves, and come back at you with the last couple of pieces of news before we get straight into those predictions. But the best part is, it'll be like a millisecond for you. So sit right there, and we will continue right down your ears.
Recording in progress.
Would you look at that? Just like that, we are back. And on with the news. So, carrying on with a bit of the rounding up since the last time we were here. A very recent happening, what's now becoming known as the Seth Rollins situation. So on Raw last week, in the title defense against Jinder Mahal, Seth Rollins appeared to injure his knee. Despite then continuing the match and delivering multiple maneuvers, which could have made things worse, like, stomping people into the mat. This week on Raw, Rollins opened the show and addressed the situation, confirming a grade 2 MCL tear and a partial meniscus tear, and that surgery is needed, and the downtime is about 3 to 4 months. But he will carry the title into WrestleMania. I presumed that was going to be without surgery when I'd kind of read the results first and then got to watch it back. As it played out live, it was kind of then unclear whether he's going to just get the surgery like ASAP and then rehab it like nobody's business. Because he did say that he would push it and rehab it, but I couldn't, there was no definitive, I'm going now for surgery, so I guess that'll play out in the next week or so. But yeah, it's like, it makes me wonder a couple of things. It's like, is the injury as bad as we're being told? Surely it would be best to get the operation now, like I said, and not wait, because, it could do more long-term damage, surely. And secondly, if he doesn't get the operation, isn't it just like a 3-month ahead of time WrestleMania spoiler?
Yeah.
Seth wanted to be a fighting champion, which so far he has been. But then if he doesn't wrestle between now and April, does that still fit the character? Not so sure. What do you guys reckon to it anyway? Have you seen much of it?
I just think it's probably a precursor to him dropping it at WrestleMania and going and getting the surgery properly done, and I don't know if he'll be about, or like you said, he said he's going to be a fighting champion, but I wonder whether this weekend's events will lead to Roman coming back a bit more and filling that void that Rollins doesn't need to be there while he gets the surgery.
Well, the shows that we've got between now and WrestleMania is obviously Royal Rumble this weekend, which we will get to very shortly. There's the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in Perth, Australia, and then Mania. Like, as far as I'm aware, like nothing else has been penciled in as yet. And Roman Reigns, I don't think, has been confirmed. I know that it could still happen, but I'm pretty sure that Roman not being in Australia is a thing, because they'll have the Elimination Chamber matches, like the big draw. Personally, I don't see if he's legit injured. Two easy options: make the Rumble for the title, because they've not done that since 2016, 17-ish, whenever it was Roman Reigns, Triple H. So there's that. And if they're not going to do that for the Rumble, do it in the Elimination Chamber. Like, you've got a guy who is consistently performing at the top of the card, who has carried particularly Raw since the inception of the World Heavyweight title. You're risking his long-term health, potentially, when you've got two easy outs that tell the story, for me. And then when eventually he does come back, again, ready-made story, because you've got the guy who never lost. This time, we know he's going to lose, and he's going to lose because he's injured. But I don't know. To me, I think if he never loses it and comes back for the title he never lost, that seems a bit better to me than the way that it's going to go down.
I think we kind of said about, like, you could have Balor kind of come back, because obviously it's, again, he's a guy that never lost as well, kind of thing. So could he take it? Damian Priest's got to kind of do something at some point with his briefcase, because that's going to expire soon. I think it's always this kind of, obviously we talk like, Paul talks a lot about like hot potato in titles about, and then sometimes they kind of desperately cling on to things. So like, Gunther's not dropped his title because they want to make him the longest serving like intercontinental title holder. I think someone shared. Did one of you guys share it? Or I think I saw it. There's like this picture of like when Roman first won the WWE title and what he looks like now, and obviously it's like 1,300 days at least, and he has aged significantly, as we all would over 3 or 4 years. But or 5 and 5. It's like this. You think, well, you've got to drop that title. They've got to. One title sat on someone's shoulders for 4 years. The newest title sat on someone's shoulders for 6 months already now, and there's that element of like, well, there's a load of people have come into the company. Yeah, fair enough. Cody got injured at a time when there was a certain storyline with that. CM Punk's come back. Randy Orton's come back. You still got people like Drew McIntyre and other people kind of sitting around twiddling their thumbs, and the titles are sitting on the same 2 people, and it doesn't seem to kind of be moving anywhere at any point. I just think it's kind of like, you've got to do something to kind of change it up a little bit. Don't pass it about like AEW pass their titles around, but it needs to kind of get a little bit more kind of variety going.
Like you said though as well, Damian Priest, there's another easy out. I appreciate that they probably don't want him to be the guy taking the title into WrestleMania. Particularly seeing as Judgment Day seems to have been backed into a comedy corridor at the moment with R-Truth. Not that that's a bad thing. Balor is the guy. Like, for me, if they were going to do it right now, like you said, they had the thing before where he had to go at a crack at Seth because he had to relinquish his title on day one because of injury, and he wanted to be the guy then to end Rollins' title reign, and not just end the title reign, injure him. Well, guess what? He's already injured. Balor officially becomes like a bad guy, like a proper bad guy, by making it all worse and taking the title to boot. Then, if they want, they can have Damian Priest cash in on his own stablemate and make that all nice and interesting. That instantly makes the Damian Priest thing much better. But yeah, I get the feeling they've gone off the boil with Balor again. At one point, it was like flavour of the month. You know, it looked like everything was going to go well. It looked like at one point, and I think we even discussed it, that there was going to be some sort of shenanigans where he'd sort of steal the briefcase in order to cash that in, and they never went that route either. Yet, I suppose. But yeah, maybe the briefcase will just become a vessel in which R-Truth stores all of the merchandising money. Who knows? But yeah. It's not looking good for Mr. Rollins, but you know, fingers crossed. If he's intent on taking it into Mania, just that his long-term health is kind of, you know, seen in a little more of an important light. But we'll see what they do. Moving away from that, from a Brit Rest standpoint, we've had the call up of Tyler Bate to SmackDown. Been aligned with his former British Strong Style partner Pete Dunne. Yep, you heard that right. Butch is no more. The Brawling Brutes are no more. Matt's elated that Ridge Holland has been put back down on NXT, so he doesn't have to see him on Raw or SmackDown every week. But Pete Dunne is back and seemingly has a Bruiserweight character to boot as well. So let's hope them two get a fair crack of the whip on SmackDown. Last bit of WWE news I had was that the 2K24 cover stars and more details about the new game have been revealed this week. Cody is going to be the cover star of the Standard Edition. Presumably it'll work alright for a month and then it'll get broken down a bit. Whilst Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair are going to share the spotlight on the cover of the Deluxe Edition. And there is a seemingly digital-only 40 Years of WrestleMania edition, which features many current and past stars that have featured on the big stage. Some of the other stuff that's been announced, they're bringing back special referee matches. Casket matches are going to be included this time around, and a whole host of other things. Obviously, there'll be more announcements closer to the release date. I don't even think that they necessarily put out a release date as part of the announcement, but obviously you can pre-order it, so the pre-order will be, it'll have the release date on there, I assume. I liked the last game. Probably the first WWE game since 2K13. For me, that was probably worth it. I'll probably end up picking it up. But for me, as you might have gathered, like to collect a few things. The last couple of games with the deluxe editions haven't featured any actual physical collectibles. So immediately that makes me not want to pay over £100 for many things which you can't hold in real life. So I'm probably just going to go with the standard edition. Moving away from WWE, although you never know where he'll end up, because I always struggle with his first name, because Kazuchika Okada, yeah, bless me, is set to leave New Japan Pro Wrestling after 5 years. Both AEW and WWE thought to be lining up offers for his services when his current contract expires at the end of January. Although in a bit of a strange twist, he's already got matches booked with New Japan for February, which are going to be his final ones there. Is a huge deal in Japan. Known worldwide. even by the people who can't say his name. So whichever company lands his signature, I think will do pretty well and certainly bring more eyes from the Far East to the US product. Can we see him going to WWE, or do we think that AEW would be the landing pad for everybody from New Japan?
It's a sort of a weird one with me because he's already had a little stint in the States before, hasn't he? Because he was on TNA's roster, like, 10 years ago or something like that, or probably even longer than that. So I think that was one of those ones where, like, people, like, sort of saw how big he got in New Japan, and then went back and, like, how the hell could TNA have dropped the ball on this guy so badly? I don't know, like, it seems as though all the people that have left New Japan recently obviously gone to AEW. I don't know, with this one, I just feel like it just seems different. Like, before, there's always been, like, this, like, sort of, like, these, like, pre-agreed, because they had the working relationship and stuff like that. And I don't know if something's just gone down where they've just gone, like, can we not anymore? And I just see him turning up in WWE personally, but I don't know if that's just because the reach is bigger. Maybe Nakamura's sort of had a word with him and said, "Come in, we'll do some stuff." I don't know. I just think for me it seems more likely that he goes to WWE.
I think that's the thing. Like, if you'd have had longer perhaps on his contract, you would have assumed that AEW would have used that working relationship to kind of bring him in, whether it's a guest spot, whether it's a run like they've done with a few others in the past. But as his contract is ending, obviously they'll have to foot the wage bill entirely. It's almost like the buying him on a permanent or getting him on a loan deal kind of a situation. But I agree. I think WWE is where he will land. Obviously, they haven't got the greatest track record necessarily with knowing what to do with Japanese wrestlers upon debut.
That was going to be the one thing that I was going to say. I mean, even with Nakamura, it feels like they've dropped the ball, because even, like, obviously in NXT he was great, came in onto the main roster. Did he win the world title, or?
No, he won the Rumble, because if you remember, that was the year that him and Asuka won the men's and the women's.
Yeah.
Was that the first year? I think that was the first year that they did the women's Rumble.
And that was when there was the rumour of the NXT Japan as well, wasn't there, and all that kind of thing. So it was like, all right, yeah, they're going to go and absolutely wipe the floor with that kind of part of it. And then, yeah, that kind of seems to have faded away. And then obviously he started up with his current character, but then that seems to have dragged on a little bit, kind of thing, as opposed to kind of not getting some kind of payoff going on. It seems to be like, oh look, he's got a really good, interesting character. He's doing something kind of similar to what he did in New Japan, but let's drag it out for an inordinate amount of time, so that people get bored of it eventually.
See, I'm all right with the sort of the new wrinkle of, like, the anime, like, part real, part animated promos. I'm quite enjoying that, and that's the kind of stuff was the start before Christmas. But again, like, they've almost stifled his momentum already, because he was getting it going with Cody. Probably should have got a win over Cody, and it never happened. Cody Rhodes could have absolutely eaten that loss, and nothing more would have been said. Yet Nakamura could have been the guy that was challenging in a world title match at Rumble, perhaps, without having to be in the Rumble. And they've not gone that way.
With him, in the same way that they built Gunther up, like, obviously Gunther got loads of little wins against people that kind of kept his momentum going and built the story and built the story and built the story. And it just seems to be like, all right, let's just throw Nakamura into, and, you know, fair enough, he should be looking at, like, the top of the card, but instead of, like, what they've done with Gunther and build him to the top of the card, they've kind of tried to shoot him straight in there, and it kind of, then it's like, oh shit, we need Cody somewhere else now, so you get back in your box for a bit.
Well, it's funny, because I was looking through last year's calendar today. I was looking for something when I was at work, and it popped up that in I think it was the 23rd of June last year was when I took the boys to Sheffield to see the house show. And so from June to now, he's gone from a feud with Bronson Reed, who still hasn't really done anything yet since his return, and is sort of languishing badly for me in mid-card, to then at least having a prominent sort of like presence, you know, in the top end of Raw for the last 2.5 months. So I think his situation has improved, but it's the constant, like, the thing with Cody is done now. They're completely done. They haven't got anybody else for him to really, like, nothing, like, they haven't given him like another opponent to work a program with. And I would suggest that, and as we'll get to, he's one of the people that have been announced for the Rumble. Whilst they haven't announced very many people for the Rumble, everybody else that's been announced has some sort of story going in, whether it's a beef with each other that have been announced, whether it's a beef with the champion, whatever it might be. Nakamura, other than hanging on to the Cody dreams, or nightmare, I guess, for a little longer, hasn't really got any story going in. And I think that highlights the problem with him again. That's what I mean. They get him up to that position, and they think, I have no idea what we're doing now. And then he starts to make his way back down the card again, and they're in danger badly of that happening. I think if it happens again, I can't see him lasting the year. So yeah. Anyway, fingers crossed they'll do a little bit better if they do get a Carter. I'm not going to attempt his first name again, clearly. That is all of my news bits for now. So we might as well get into some predictions. Now, usually this would be one of the bigger cards of the year, and we'll have lots of predictions to talk about. But yeah, we'll see. This year's Royal Rumble is the 37th instalment of the event and comes to us live from Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida on Saturday, January the 27th. Technically, I guess for us it's on Sunday morning as it kicks off on midnight. As always, the match information is taken from WWE.com and is correct at the time of recording. As always, again, the card is subject to change. But as we record, there are currently only 4 matches announced, which, for one of the big premium live events of the year, seems a little light. And it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine that matches actually have already been announced for Raw next week. A tag title match and an Intercontinental title match. Yet the Rumble card, one of the biggest of the year, feels ridiculously light. I mean, there's no women's title match. Despite the fact there's 2 women's champions across the brands again, there is no women's title match, which is irritating me slightly. But they've even booked a women's tag title match for SmackDown the night before the Rumble. I mean, say, oh god, what? Like, yeah. But that being said, I guess there is still plenty to discuss, because especially with the 2 Rumble matches themselves. So we will get into it. I am going to rip the band-aid off for Mr. Cook and get his favourite out of the way first. I will start with a US title match with everybody's favourite US champion, Logan Paul, defending that title against Kevin Owens. Despite winning the title at Crown Jewel way back when, this is Logan Paul's first title defence. A tournament determined the challenger for the US title, in which Kevin Owens came out on top, defeating Austin Theory, Carmelo Hayes and Santos Escobar along the way. Now, it remains to be seen whether Kevin Owens can use the momentum from the tournament to capture his first singles title since 2017, or is Logan, wait for it Paul, primed for victory? You are welcome, sir. Seeing as he reacted so well to my terrible dad joke, Paul can give us the first prediction of the podcast.
It would be nice if Kevin Owens got the win, but he isn't going to. So Logan Paul to return.
Andy's looking severely disappointed, to which I can only assume he's about to agree with Paul.
Yep. Yeah, I am.
2 for 2. Matt?
Yeah.
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 Ah, man, pains me to say it, but we're going to get a clean sweep on the first prediction. I guess it's one of them. Say what you want about it. I'm sure he's doing wonderful numbers on social media. He does put an effort in, at least a bit of effort into his matches, at least, I suppose. But be interesting to see what he can do one-on-one with somebody like Kevin Owens. You would assume that the styles will probably match fairly well on the basis that Logan Paul can jump around like a jack-in-the-box on acid, and Kevin Owens can at least base most of that stuff. So we'll see. Okay, so clean sweep across the board. The next match I have on my list is the undisputed WWE Universal title Fatal 4-Way match. Roman Reigns getting off his ass to do some work for a change and defending that title against Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and LA Knight. So Knight, Styles, and Orton battled in a triple threat match to determine the number one contender. However, Reigns had other ideas. Trying to get the night off at the Rumble, because you know he never gets the night off. He came in, tried to dismantle the competition. Didn't really turn out for the lad though, did it? Because SmackDown general manager Nick Aldis declared that as number one contender could not be determined, Reigns would just face all three of them at the Rumble. What I like about the way that this has been set up though is that all three of them have a legitimate beef with Roman Reigns. Obviously Orton was taken out by the Bloodline and missed 18 months of action. AJ Styles has a similar story but only missed 3 months. Whereas Knight wasn't injured but was cost the Universal title at Crown Jewel when the Bloodline got involved. You know, as we mentioned earlier, there is the potential of the Dwayne turning up in amongst all of this as well and causing some havoc. So yeah, is it going to turn out that one of those three get a measure of revenge and take home a title? Or is Reigns carrying the title all the way to WrestleMania? Andy?
Part of me wants to say, why do we have these matches? Is Roman retaining the title? Yes, he is. So what's the point in the match? It's almost like we could skip to the end and just have he retains the title and we move on. It's weird that we need to put a match in the way of that, but yeah,
You've got to make sure that you bury three other contenders on the way through, just to make sure that they fully know where they're playing.
Yes, sorry, no, that is the reason. Yeah, that's it, right.
Matt, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I've gone Roman Reigns because there's just no way that he's not going to carry it into WrestleMania. You know, hopefully he'll lose it at WrestleMania, but he's not going to carry it into WrestleMania.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, same as these lads. I love the fact that it's probably been raised in the past, but I love the fact that if you go back sort of within the last 30 years of us like watching wrestling and stuff like that, the title holder the mandatory 30-day defence clause or whatever seems to have just been thrown out of the window in the last 3 or 4 years.
As we know with wrestling, the rules only apply when they deem them relevant. I'm sure that is a rule in the actual rule book.
Yep. I believe on I know this you probably won't get this because obviously it's a podcast from a gentleman that you don't particularly enjoy, but on most of the Conrad shows, I believe if anything like that ever comes up, he just goes RASSLIN, that's wrestling.
Okay, well, I'm going to round that up with a Roman Reigns. So we've got 2 clean sweeps. To be fair, when I saw the match card come out, I did kind of expect that this would happen. If Roman Reigns isn't carrying that title into WrestleMania, something bizarre has happened. Whether that bizarre thing turns out to be The Rock, it seems that The Rock may make an appearance in Australia. As of time of recording, Roman Reigns isn't confirmed, as we mentioned earlier. But if those two were to face off at WrestleMania, they don't need a title to be in the mix for this. But taking the title off Reigns screws with the potential ending of the Rumble as well, because I think if Roman Reigns loses that title, Cody has no chance of winning the Rumble again back to back, because he doesn't finish that story as he keeps going on about. Whilst he does it in sense that if he could win the title at WrestleMania, it only kind of feels that it'd only be right now if it's him that is the one. So I think that's a kind of giving away the hand for what I assume will be the end of the night as well. Okay, so as there's only 4 matches, that only leaves us with the women's and the men's Rumble matches. Now, we're going to go with the women's one first, but we're going to do things to try and get a few more points on the scoreboard for the predictions. So for each Rumble match, we are going to go with not only the winner, you'll have the opportunity to pick 2 surprise entrants. And what I'm deeming by surprise entrants are people who maybe aren't on the active roster or haven't been on the active roster in the last month. The Iron Man or Iron Woman, obviously depending on the match, and the most eliminations. So there is the potential for 5 points per Rumble match if you manage to absolutely nail it. But as those will take a little longer to get through, I think it's time that we just had a very, very small break, just in order to get refreshed again, once again, get your thoughts in order for who you think is going to fill all of those boxes, and we will be right back with you momentarily.
Recording in progress.
And with that, we will get straight in to the Women's Royal Rumble. So we've had it in the past where they've all but named every single person that's going to enter the Royal Rumble. Historically, we always haven't had a quite so plentiful list of entrants. And it seems they've gone a little bit old school this year, or just can't be asked, not really sure, in which only 4 women, as of time of recording, have been officially declared for the Royal Rumble. And those 4 are Becky Lynch, Nia Jax, Bayley, and Bianca Belair. So I can only assume that this is going to make picking surprise entrants that much easier, but bear in mind, try and stay away from the ones who have been on the active roster within the last month. NXT people, I think, would probably still count because they've not been on the main roster. Are you guys okay with those rules?
I believe that all of my picks for both the men's and the women's Rumble would fall into that particular category, yes.
Yeah. I haven't gone first yet, and I feel just purely for the surprises, I feel like I should go first on this one. Of the people who are named, I actually have them in 3 of 4 categories, obviously not surprises. So I think the most eliminations this year will fall to Nia Jax. They seem to have been doing a bit of a job of making her feature prominently. They gave her a win over Becky Lynch on Raw a few weeks ago. So Nia is going in the most eliminations category for me. Longest time in the match for me will go to Becky. The winner of the match, I'm going to... I mean, I can see 1,000 reasons why not. But there's been a bit of kind of like an undercurrent online of this potentially happening. So I'm going to go with there is absolutely no way that Bayley is going to win, except for I've picked Bayley to win the Rumble, purely for then the finale of this damage control ejection because I'm going to say it would then be Bayley versus Io at WrestleMania. But in the surprises category, and again, mark this down as potentially shooting fish in a barrel, my two picks are Sasha Banks and Naomi. They're left together. They're coming back together. Naomi's deal with TNA has expired and has been quite well publicised. Sasha Banks is sort of in the middle of finalising her CBD business and not doing anything else with her time currently other than going to watch her friends. So yeah, those are my picks. Have I stolen thunder from any of your other picks, Andy?
My picks are very similar. Basically, yeah, I've got Bayley down to win.
Okay.
I've got Becky Lynch to do most eliminations and longest because I thought the two of those would go together. I also had Sasha Banks as a surprise entrant, and I will hold my hands up on this one. I had to do a little bit of Googling, but a name that kept coming up was Jade Cargill.
Ooh. I would pick.
So I can't take credit for it. All I can say is when I Googled and did a couple of different searches for a couple of different things, her name appeared more than once. So that was the other option I had.
That is somebody who they've done an excellent job of doing nothing with since she was signed, and I had pretty much forgotten about her, in fairness. So that is a solid pick, because that's a way to get off the mark. Matt, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm furious because I did no research and picked Jade Cargill as one of my surprise entrants.
Okay. Got that on the list. Do you want to go with your other surprise?
Is it Lyra Valkyrie? They're just the NXT Women's Champion.
Okay, so Lyra Valkyria. Otherwise, I think, if I remember rightly, we actually saw her. I mean, you blatantly picked that to try and get me to spell her surname. I'm pretty sure we saw her WWE debut in York when she was on the NXT UK brand, and it was when she was going by Aoife, wasn't it?
Yeah, where they recorded her entrance or exit of the ring several times over and got to repeat it over and over again, which was painful to say the least.
And she's still got the feathery shoulders as well. She's kept that throughout the whole show.
The only thing that's changed is her name.
But if as painful as it was, Matt, if you had to watch that over and over again, or Ridge Holland giving Alabama slams over and over again, which would you prefer to do?
Well, I mean, is it Tyson T-Bone? I would suggest that he would. That was definitely very painful for him, because Christ almighty. So yeah, they're my two surprises. I've gone longest Bianca Belair. Just, it seems to be her kind of thing. Most eliminations, Nia Jax. And my winner, I'd originally gone Charlotte Flair because I'd completely forgotten that her knee exploded on Raw or SmackDown a couple of months ago. And there was a moment where I thought, do I go like Liv Morgan or someone like that as like the winner, just as like add an extra surprise thing in there? I've gone with Becky Lynch. It's boring, and she's won it most years recently, it feels like. So yeah, I've gone Becky Lynch. Just to be different.
Okay, so they're all in. So Paul, what are yours?
So I think
Easy for you to say.
So I too have got Bayley winning the Rumble.
Wow. Okay. I'm surprised at that.
I too have Naomi down as a surprise entrant, but the rest are all names that I haven't heard yet.
Okay.
Or not heard in the categories that have been mentioned. Longest in the Rumble, I've gone with Asuka.
Okay.
I think it's one of those ones where she's probably one of the only women on the roster who could actually go that long. And it kind of sets up the sort of the thread of Damage Control sort of controlling the sort of the narrative of the match. So if you have one of them sort of like in as the sort of the Iron Woman that sort of sits into it. I don't think where you said the sort of the Bailey winning it get to like excommunicate from the group and stuff like that. I think that'll come later. I don't think that'll come at the actual Rumble.
No,
I think it'll come as like a sort of, which I'm assuming you weren't. I know you probably weren't getting that, but I think it'll be that thing where they'll work together, but at some point, Asuka will get eliminated. Not necessarily by Bailey, but it might be one of those ones where it's like a mix-up of miscommunication or something like that. Most eliminations I've gone for Bianca Belair. And then my other surprise entrant, I'm amazed that we've got this far without her being mentioned. AJ Lee.
That makes a lot of sense.
There's been videos that have been doing the rounds of her in the ring, practice, going through spots with CM Punk. Now, obviously, that could just be to sort of get him in ring shape, but why wouldn't it be to get her in ring shape at the same time?
I noticed that she had on her Instagram, she'd been posting pictures of like the super high tops that she used to wear as well, like the almost like knee length Converse, which was part of her old gear. So that makes a lot of sense. I didn't know if we'd get her back so quickly after his reintroduction, particularly with everything that the company put them both through. But I guess the fact that they then have the goal to release a Hell Froze Over t-shirt with his logo on it after what happened was exactly. For those of you not watching along on YouTube, that's Paul pretending to cough whilst doing the money fingers. As
it'd have been much better if I could have just pressed the button and obviously just dollars just rained down on top of me or something like that.
I mean, we all wish we had one of them buttons, Paul. Come on.
Yeah, sadly the note cannon didn't get delivered in time.
So that does round us out. So 3 out of the 4 of us have got Bailey down to win. I presume part of that as well for me was that she's one of the original 4 horse women, if you like, that hasn't won it yet. I feel like that's an accolade that kind of is escaping her. But everything else, me and Andy have got Becky in for the longest. Other than that, like you say, it is very, very mixed. So hopefully, right from the off, that will start to set us apart predictions-wise. Okay, so nobody was announced for the Women's Rumble, hardly, right? So the Men's Rumble, they're going to have announced all but 3 places, right? No. So declared for the Men's Rumble so far, we have Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Gunther, Damian Priest, and Kofi Kingston. So, by Kofi's announcement, I can presume that that's because they're trying to get some sort of record from him still, because he's way up there in the charts now. The one that I don't understand and never will understand is the Money in the Bank holder entering the Royal Rumble match.
Well, wouldn't you want 2 chances to win the title?
I mean, if you're doing it right, you only need 1, don't you? Let's be fair.
There's 2 belts.
1 of each. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one. I would have rather the announcement been Balor. Again, going back to what we were saying earlier on, Matt, but I'm not sure where that one sits for me. Gunther, it feels like a bit of natural progression. He obviously interrupted Seth Rollins' promo on Raw this past week, sort of interjecting himself into the title mix. It's nice that they've gone to the effort of like saying, you know, we know fully that the Intercontinental Championship, he's had it for the most amount of time ever, but the world title is still that one step up, which is how it should be. Like, to me, that was always the progression, and they've kind of almost reinstated that in that one promo. Bobby Lashley, sorry kid, you're just there for the numbers, for my money. To be honest, based on the women's announcements, it's strange that they've even announced him. Unless somebody may come back to have a bit of a ding-dong with him particularly. But yeah, the others are kind of sort of standard fare, really. As I went first this time, I will on the last one. Sorry, I will not go first this time. So, who wants to give their men's Royal Rumble predictions first?
I don't mind jumping in.
Go on
then. So for most eliminations, I've gone with Damian Priest. For the longest time it's spent in the Rumble, I've gone with Cody Rhodes. My two surprise entrants, I have gone with Andrade and Matt Cardona.
Oh, you swine.
Not Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona specifically. And winner, I've gone for CM Punk.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
This is the one where I feel like we're going to have a lot of overlap.
No, Matt shaking his head vociferously. Gone for the Rock in every category.
Matt, are yours different, or if they are different, I'm going to go.
No, genuinely are different.
Okay, let's go to Andy first then, seeing as he was visibly displeased when Paul opened his mouth, which I'm sure isn't a common occurrence, but
longest time in Cody.
Yep.
Most eliminations, Drew.
Okay.
Winner, CM Punk. I also had Matt Cardona. And my other surprise entrance, Big E.
Ooh.
Hang on a second. Can someone just check that Andy is actually there? This is the part of the podcast where he can say his guy, and
yeah,
and he hasn't gone with his guy.
I thought about it for a long time, and I was like, it makes the most sense to say Stone Cold Steve Austin, but I've gone for the points this time. I'm getting the points out of the bag. Bearing in mind, at one point today, I did have his Dwayne-ship in one of the categories.
Presumably winner, right?
100%.
Man, imagine if he does enter the Rumble though, and then we get a bit of a CM Punk, The Rock ding dong after that title match from when he spat dummy out a bit. Anyway, I'll try not to tread on his toes. Matt, do you want to hit us with yours?
Yeah, I've got Cody winning it.
Okay.
I've got for the surprises. I've gone NXT, so I've gone Bron Breakker.
Yep.
And Gabe Stevenson.
Is he still around?
Yeah, he's been on NXT, so that's what made me think. Apparently he's getting booed a lot, so I just thought they'll chuck him in there just to have the shit booed out of him in wherever they're at. Longest in, I've gone Sami Zayn to be in the longest. So, I've got visions of him coming out first. And then most eliminations, Gunther.
Okay, so we have a little bit of overlap with mine, not too much. But on mine, I have got most eliminations also as Gunther. I've got longest as Drew. My surprises, if you're watching along on YouTube, you may have seen me mouth a horrible word at Paul when he mentioned Andrade. His contract was up with AEW at the end of last year, I think was possibly coming back to do some sort of husband and wife deal with Charlotte Flair, and then her knee exploded, as Matt alluded to earlier. So Andrade is one of my surprise entrants, and I was convinced also that Andy was going to utter the words Brock Lesnar, and he didn't. I have got Brock as one of my surprise entrants. That's the one that's coming back to have a bit of a ding-dong with Bobby Lashley, surely, if anything.
Gunther?
Yeah, there's also that as well. But yeah, Brock and Andrade for my surprises. And the winner, for the first time since, was it Stone Cold was the last one, doing it back-to-back, Cody as well.
Interesting.
So that rounds us out. It does give us, because we've got 5 points potentially from each Rumble match, considering that there's only 4 matches on the card, as we've been talking about, it does give us a maximum of 12 points. So it's all to play for, and like we have got a good bit of variation. Not like last month when we had to, when we built the tiebreak in because we knew it was going to be very, very close. But that is it. It's time to start that road to WrestleMania. The Royal Rumble for me should be the best pay-per-view outside of WrestleMania in the entire year. If it's not, something wrong has happened. But with that being said, has anybody got any other business for this podcast?
I think the only thing for me was Mad Kurt.
Oh, of course. Mm-hmm.
So he's a British wrestler, kind of comes under the, I don't want to call him comedy act, but kind of comedy act. Passed away just after Christmas. I think he had a thing, most recently, I think he was known for having a thing with Matt Cardona about being the champion of the internet, because he did spend a lot of his time on like X or Twitter, kind of winding people up, and was banned by a lot of old wrestlers, shall we say, for kind of particularly taking the piss out of him. But yeah, kind of I saw him wrestle a couple of times, very entertaining. Yeah, kind of, but yeah, just a real shame, kind of thing. Yeah, so
yeah, he was when he passed away, he was only 26, which is just nuts. He'd been around the British scene for quite a long time though, as well, hadn't he? So he's when he was only 26, I thought that was a bit like I thought he would be older, but seemingly not. But yeah, I think probably when you've seen him, is it more in his time in North?
Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times in North. We've never seen him in Progress, did we?
I don't think he was there when I went to Progress. No, I don't think I've seen him live. But strangely enough, I do have an autographed 8x10 that came in one of the UK wrestle crates once upon a time.
Yeah. But yeah, just
it's not great, is it? Well, yeah. I mean, I've always like thoughts with the family and the fans, and hopefully he'll if he's. He kind of, like you say, he has got that kind of legacy. Not, let's say, comedy's not the right word, but like he does leave behind that kind of memory, and whether or not somewhere like North will pick up like some sort of memorial tournament, I guess, when it comes time. I think he did wrestle for Progress, I'm pretty sure, at some point, and the anniversary, I guess, next year will probably come around the time that they do their unboxing paper, event. So
he was very pally with like Chris Brooks and Kid Lycos and that kind of, even Aussie Open, who moved on to like AEW and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he'd been in like the where they have the future kind of tournament, where one of them will have been recommended by Chris Brooks or Kid Lycos in that, and so he will have got a match in there, kind of thing. But yeah, sad kind of thing. Like
when Eddie Kingston won the tournament thing at World's End for the Continental Classic, as it was themed, he actually dedicated his victory to the memory of Matt Kurt as well. So it's somebody who's never been on the big stages as such, but obviously earned a decent reputation amongst the boys, as it were. So yeah, Okay, well, that will bring us to the end of the Royal Rumble predictions. Enjoy your weekend. Don't get too smashed on the drinking games because, you know, it's not big, it's not clever, and if you've picked Cody, you're probably going to survive. Or CM Punk. I would have said it'll be definitely one of them two. But as soon as we've all picked either Cody or CM Punk, probably going to be like R-Truth now, isn't it? Anyway, we shall see you next time we're getting over for some results and for some more prediction-based action. So thanks very much, gents, and catch you later.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Wrestling's back for the year. Plenty more pay-per-views to look for. Premium live events to look forward to. And the first one's in the bag. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave reviews where you can leave reviews. And check out the website. It's thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button. And that way you can get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Join us next time when we'll be talking more premium live events and more wrestling. Until then, I'm going to say bye. And I'll see you then.
This has been another episode of CookieCast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.